This is Radio Taiwan International.
Welcome to the news on Radio Taiwan International. I'm Tristan Hildebrand coming to you from Taipei, Taiwan. We begin with the look at today's top stories for Tuesday, January 6th. A large-scale Chinese invasion of Taiwan could result in over 100,000 PLA casualties and 50,000 Taiwanese military casualties. Michael Galler states that the European Parliament cannot accept China undermining the status quo across the Taiwan Strait, and Taiwan continues closely monitoring the political and economic developments inside and outside of Venezuela. But first, today's top story. A large-scale Chinese invasion of Taiwan could result in over 100,000 PLA casualties and 50,000 Taiwanese military casualties, according to a German Marshall Fund of the United States GMF report published this Monday, titled If China Attacks Taiwan. The report details the potential impact and consequences of a Chinese military invasion of Taiwan from economic, military, social, and international perspectives. Militarily, the report assumes that if China launches a small-scale conflict against Taiwan between 2026 and 2030, it will lose its advantage in future military surprise attacks. It states that Taiwan and the United States could also use this to mobilize international allies to support Taiwan. In the event of a large-scale invasion, a conflict lasting several months would result in more than 100,000 PLA casualties, about 50,000 Taiwanese military deaths, and 50,000 civilian deaths, 5,000 U.S. military deaths and 1,000 civilian deaths, and 1,000 Japanese military deaths and 500 civilian deaths. The report says the conflict would likely end with the PLA withdrawing from Taiwan's main island, but retaining control of the Kinmen and Matsu Islands. A prolonged confrontation with increased casualties, the report says, would raise questions about the legitimacy of the conflict, leading to social unrest. A large-scale conflict would prompt the U.S. and its allies to recall ambassadors and expel Chinese embassy personnel, the report says. As the war would drag on, China would face more severe international sanctions and boycotts. The report points out that even limited military action would be devastating to the Chinese economy, with costs potentially in the trillions of dollars. European Parliament member Michael Galler stated that the legislative body cannot accept China undermining the status quo across the Taiwan Strait and that it will continue to support maintaining peace in the region. Galler, who chairs the European Taiwan Friendship Group, is leading a 10-member group on a visit to Taiwan and met with President Lai Ching-te this Tuesday. The Taiwan Strait is an international strait, explained Galler, adding that he thinks it's good that different countries demonstrate that by sending ships through and declaring they do not accept a unilateral change of the status quo. He called Beijing's recent large-scale military drills surrounding Taiwan a belligerent and aggressive posture that the international community has strongly condemned. President Lai thanked the European Parliament for their long-standing and unwavering support for Taiwan, including the passing of numerous supportive resolutions. He said that reaffirming the ironclad rule of peace through strength is necessary, but that democratic countries uniting and cooperating to resist authoritarian expansion is even more important. Lai emphasized Taiwan's capability, willingness, and determination to become Europe's most trustworthy partner, especially in the semiconductor and high-tech industries, saying,
Taiwan
is ready to work hand-in-hand with the European Parliament and its members to translate bilateral exchanges into concrete actions to build a democratic supply chain, injecting stronger resilience into the global economy.
Responding to media inquiries regarding American forces' recent operation in Venezuela, Taiwan's foreign ministry stated Tuesday that it is closely monitoring political and economic developments both inside and outside of Venezuela. Foreign Ministry spokesperson Xiao Guangwei said,
Based on the fundamental principles of protecting and assisting our citizens abroad, Taiwan will continue to monitor developments and respond accordingly. We also hope that Venezuela can successfully transition to a democratic system and promote the development of bilateral relations.
Regarding the approximately 200 Taiwanese nationals currently residing in Venezuela, the Taipei Economic and Cultural Office in Colombia, which also handles Venezuelan affairs, has confirmed that all 200 residents are safe. Some airlines operating flights to Venezuela have announced that flights to and from Caracas will gradually resume in coming days. Following the 2024 Venezuelan presidential election, which sparked a wave of public protests, the ministry had called on the government of now ousted President Nicolas Maduro to respect democratic values and the choices made by the Venezuelan people. Toward the end of 2025, the Maduro government criticized the United States arms sales to Taiwan. The ministry responded by issuing a firm protest and condemnation, in addition to retorting that the Venezuelan government's current priority should be to address the people's demands for democracy, freedom, human rights, the rule of law, and basic dignity. The strike on Venezuela and Maduro's capture has been controversial both internationally and within the United States. Taiwan has signaled that it will continue to work together with the U.S. and other like-minded allies around the world on regional and global security, stability, and prosperity. A Venezuelan digital rights activist living in Spain says news of U.S. military strikes on Venezuela and the capture of President Nicolas Maduro sent shockwaves through the global Venezuelan diaspora, triggering a mix of worry, celebration, and deep uncertainty about what comes next for the country. Valentina Aguana, who monitors censorship and information controls in Venezuela, told RTI that removing Maduro does not automatically amount to regime change. While the United States has said Maduro and his wife are now in custody, Aguana noted that power inside Venezuela remains concentrated among officials tied to the same ruling system. She said Vice President Delcy Rodriguez has assumed control without following constitutional procedures, such as a congressional swearing-in, underscoring how institutions have been hollowed out under years of authoritarian rule. Inside the country, she said, state media left many Venezuelans in the dark during the strikes. Government television channels aired movies and old programs for hours, while private broadcasters largely stayed silent, apparently awaiting instructions. Aguana said social media became the primary source of information, especially for younger people, while older viewers who rely on television were left confused. Aguana said censorship did not immediately intensify in the way activists expected. Platforms such as WhatsApp and Telegram remained accessible, even though X had long been blocked. She attributed the absence of new blocks to the government being caught off guard. But she also said she remains deeply skeptical of U.S. motives, particularly Washington's interest in Venezuela's oil.
I'm skeptical of the intentions of the U.S. government. I do not think that the U.S. government is doing this only because he wants to bring democracy to Venezuela. But also in social media, they are talking about this as if we don't know this. Like, of course I know. Of course Venezuelans know. Oh, the U.S. is only talking about oil. Yes, we know. That's what Trump says on its public TV. Like, yes, we know.
Looking ahead, Aguana described hope as fragile but indispensable. Venezuelans, she said, cannot afford to abandon it while political prisoners remain behind bars and millions remain separated from family members who fled abroad. The Associated Press reports Chinese authorities in Xinjiang are threatening detention over listening to banned Uyghur language songs.
Chinese authorities in Xinjiang are warning residents that listening to the wrong music could land them in detention or worse. An Associated Press investigation has found that officials in the region are targeting Uyghur language songs, from traditional folk ballads to rap and newer music produced overseas. The policy was revealed through a leaked audio recording of a public meeting held in October 2024 in Kashgar. The recording was obtained exclusively by the AP from the Norway-based nonprofit Uyghur Yelp. In the meeting, police and local officials warned residents that downloading, sharing, or even storing certain Uyghur songs on their phones could lead to punishment. They played a pre-recorded message listing banned music and said violations would be severely punished without specifying how. In 2022, the United Nations said China's actions in Xinjiang may amount to crimes against humanity. China says its policies are aimed at fighting terrorism and extremism, and that ethnic minorities enjoy cultural freedom. Joey Chow for RTI News.
Thank you for joining me for the news. I'm Tristan Hildebrand. Stay tuned for another 50 minutes of English language features brought to you by Radio Taiwan International.